Was good, yeah. It's time for a new video, and this time we're going to talk about all the heroes that are released on the Forerunner server, but still have to come to global. A couple of those are pretty old, and a couple of those are brand new, but obviously still not released for us. And yeah, it's kind of going to be a little bit of an overview in regards to should you save your resources, are those characters worth anything looking forward to? And on the note of characters, let's just start with Edith first. Now, who is Edith and why would we start with her? Number one, she's the Watcher faction, so we just go faction by faction. And number two, as already confirmed by Destined Watcher of Realms, we are going to get her banner on the 19th, so in 8 days, in conjunction with Karmith. So it's going to be a Karmith and Edith banner. So yeah, issue worth looking forward to. I'm gonna try to keep it a bit brief. We're just going to do a quick kit overview and then I'm gonna give you my thoughts. So yeah, if you read the talent, it states that again, all damage scales off of defense. It's a trend with Trusk, her, Azor, Garn. We're Crowder, we're getting George, Jorge, whoever, you know who I mean. We're kind of seeing the trend of just getting defense-based defenders that are like kind of like a lukewarm mix of, oh, I'm supposed to tank, but I also am supposed to do damage. But if you build them for damage, they don't do damage and they're just more squishy. And if you build them for tankiness, because they have damage aspects in their kit, they aren't as tanky as just a straight up tank. So they're kind of a mix between a DPS and a tank, and they're just like this weird middle part where they're like kind of squishy and don't really do damage. But yeah, so kit-wise, she has a mechanic called Equine Aegis, Equine being a horse, I believe. So she can stack this up to 5 times, and what it does is it reduces 5 hits by 30%. So the first 5 hits, or however many stacks she has, she can reduce the damage by 30%. Then we have the ultimate, in which she is able to do 150% AoE damage up to 8 enemies in range, and it lasts for 15 seconds, as well as having the first 2 basic attacks during each ultimate, knocking back the enemies with 2 times strength. So right in this video, if this doesn't lag, great. You would have been able to see that she has some knockback, so knockback is interesting. I believe the only character where you really also would see knockback applied is probably Cyclone, but he's kind of bad. And yeah, right here you can see she's pushing them back, she's doing damage, but that's again the thing, if you lean into the damage aspect, you're going to lose the tankiness aspect. And right here we have her just gaining her Equine Aegis every 40 seconds, as well as having that cooldown going obviously down all the way to 30 seconds normally. And then also with the ultimate, if let's say your ultimate hypothetically hits 4 people, you're going to be able to reduce the cooldown by 4 seconds twice, so 8 seconds, which would give you 22 seconds. And then lastly, we have a Warrior's Resolve. If the hero takes no damage, she increases her defense and physical damage reduction by 3% every 6 seconds, up to 15%, obviously stacking higher with skill ups. So overall, she's obviously kind of like you place her down and then she stacks up her defenses to tank big and hard hits. So more along the lines of, you're going to get a strong enemy, they're going to hit her, she's going to survive, but then you do need to actually kill that enemy because she can't really sustain herself, because the more damage she takes, the less buffs she has, the more damage she takes, the faster she dies. So yeah, honestly, Edith, is she a must pull? Is she anyone useful? Is she anyone crazy? Is she revolutionizing the wheel? The answer is no. She's a horse person. She's unique. She looks cool. If you pull her, it's definitely better than a Croc. But overall, she's no one where you would actually need to spend your resources for. Just a quick note before we move on. Obviously, if you want to support me, if you like this type of content, if you appreciate the time I've put into them, do make sure to leave a like if you want to, comment, subscribe if that's your type of deal. It would obviously greatly help me out, but enough of self-advertising here. So yeah, that's the Watcher faction. Now on to the North Throne. Oh shit! Hey, what the hell? I didn't even know this guy existed. So, new hero review. Straight off the bat, I haven't seen him before. And yeah, Rock, an epic Northerner. So now next to Isolde, we get another Northerner faction lord. damage scales off of HP. We've been talking about it, we've been thinking about it, and here we go. Rourke. Damage scaling off of HP. The hero grants a shield equal to 15% of max HP to whoever casts an ultimate within the tile, lasting for 10 seconds. The shield strength increases by 100% when the effect works on this hero. Okay, so he gets a 30% shield if he casts an ultimate himself, and a 15% shield to allies. Range-wise, I don't know. Oh shit. That's great. We have the 2 range. So the biggest problem with pretty much all epics in the game at the moment is the fact that you only hit 1 range. So you can't just place him behind the tank and have him hit in front. No, they're just going to stay around and do nothing. But at 6 stars level 60, we are getting the beautiful 2 tile range as well as 4800 attack. Not bad. Alright, so physical attack. It deals 100% damage to 1 enemy. Not bad. Cryoblast Cleave. Upon activation, basic attack deals 170% AoE damage up to 8 targets in the front area instead. For every shield strength equal to 1% of max HP owned, increases damage by 1% up to 80%. Going up to 100%. Okay. Upon activation, basic attack deals AoE damage to up to 8 targets in the front area instead. For every shield strength equal to 1% of max HP owned, increases damage by up to 80%. So, if he has a shield that is equal to 100% of his HP, he's going to do 100% more damage. I like it. I like it. I like that. Alright. During the ultimate, dealing damage with basic attack to every 1 target grants a shield equal to 1% of max HP for 5 seconds. The shield strength will not exceed 30% of max HP, going up to 60%. Which basically means that if he triggers his own talent, he has a 60 plus 30% shield, which gives him 90%. That's not bad. Doing the ultimate dealing damage. So yeah, he can basically just give him shield himself, which obviously then hopefully works with his Lord skill. Thunder of the North 2 increases faction team members' basic attributes by 10%, so standard. Periodically grants all faction team members a shield equal to 20% of their max HP for 20 seconds, standard. The more faction allies there are on the team, the more frequently it takes effect. Yeah, it's the same Lord bonus as Isolde, so not that exciting. If it was a damaging skill, now that would have been something. Awakenings. Shields receive plus 20%, which means he gets a 90% shield that turns into 110% or even 90 plus, so 108%, but stronger shields. Crit rate extends the talent's effect range to 2 tiles. Talent effect, it said within 1 tile, so the units basically all around him like Laurel range, and now even bigger. Okay, not bad. A 4 penetration plus 8% is what it is, and then when an ally in the talent effect range casts an ultimate, increases the hero's max HP by 4% times 5 up to 20%. So honestly, he looks solid. I like his kit, and damn boy, we're finally getting some new epics. What the hell? That's great. So yeah, we got all those characters pretty much already talked about besides him. Nightmare faction. Who do we have that isn't on global? You might already be able to see it because the answer is quite a lot of people. So number 1, Aris. Who the hell is Aris? Aris is kind of like your budget Toreador. So his basic attack applies defense reduction 20%. Toreador's basic attack applies defense reduction but at also 20%. So they're kind of like the same thing, but obviously Aris isn't a lord, Toreador is. Basic attack wise, he deals 100% damage to one enemy, pretty standard. Outrage increases damage by 50%, and dealing damage has the 30% chance to inflict vulnerability on the target. Vulnerability in this case being 30% more physical damage taken, which obviously works quite well with this kit, so he's a very nice debuffer. Then we have Vital Strike. There's a 25% chance of dealing 150% damage with basic attacks. Targets inflicted with vulnerability by the hero himself take double the damage, and during the ultimate the chance to increase to 35%, which basically means he's able to hit other people harder. And then what we've already talked about, again, he has that nice 2-tile range, so you can place him behind a tank, have him then be the damage dealer. So he is a pretty solid character, but honestly, sadly, just from his modifiers and base stats, he never really turned into anything spectacular, neither in Guild Boss nor outside of content. But at the end of the day, you kind of can imagine him as just a pretty solid character. He's a pretty solid standard kid, does his stuff well, and when deployed, immediately attacks up to 5 enemies in front, dealing 200% damage and inflicting vulnerability. So yeah, nice debuffer, relatively standard kit, stat-wise also relatively alright, obviously with a pretty high 6200 as your normal Salazar, but he isn't really anything too crazy, and you never really see him used in like high end game content. Though honestly, he looks cool, and he's probably an alright-ish asset to most accounts, I guess. Which brings us to Maw. Now, most of you are probably familiar with Maw as Guild Boss. So the reward for 50k is obviously Maw that you can then use in GVG, but he's also a hero. And what he does is each attack launched has a 25% chance of inflicting bleed upon the target, which then obviously makes him a viable bleed unit. There, also, if we take a look at the attack speed, you're going to see 2.6, so you can cut that down rather low. And then dealing physical attack, or physical attack dealing 100% damage, pretty standard. Ultimate wise, the hero executes one enemy within range. This effect doesn't apply to elites or bosses. See, that's the problem. Execute, yes, doesn't apply to elites or bosses. Kind of shit. Yeah, so, but what does he get? He gets 100% attack speed, 30% attack for 15 seconds, as well as reduced skill cost and increased rage. So 30% attack buff, 100 attack speed is quite nice, but yeah, execute is really not worth it if you can't even use it against elites and bosses. Each basic attack launch has a 15% chance to deal 120% damage to one enemy, knocking them back with 2 times strength. Damage to targets inflicted with bleed increases by 50%, which obviously works quite well with his kit. And then killing targets increases the hero's damage by 5% and max HP by 5% permanently, stacking up to 5 times. Obviously then with higher multipliers. He's kind of like an Aris scenario, but he only applies bleed. So you have your new option besides like Vladov, Salazar, Saga, Klugaru. You have more, but again, he's kind of like a, oh, nice to have, but you're not really going to see him used anywhere particularly kind of character. Because he has some nice stats. He does his work, but he just gets outshined by other characters. So he's also more of a like a dud-ish character. Now onto one of the most awesome looking characters, also one that the Golden Buckets showed off still. And yeah, so what does Magmus do? Gains Magma Burst every 7 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. Consumes 1 stack to deal 125% AoE damage to the target and up to 3 units around the target with the next basic attack or retribution. So as long as he doesn't attack stuff, he can then kind of charge it up. Then we have the physical attack dealing 100% damage to one enemy. The ultimate lava flow turns the ground around the heroes into flowing lava that deals 60% damage to enemies on it per second. Doing the effect increases block by 2 and max HP by 80%. This skill lasts for 12 seconds. So his block goes all the way up to 4, which makes him 1 block higher than a defender. And if you then give him the right artifact, you're even going to be able to go to 5 block, which obviously is quite nice. But kind of like the problem with having high block fighters is the fact that they just die. So when receiving damage, there's a 25% chance to trigger a counterattack, dealing damage and inflicting vulnerability, physical damage at 20% on one enemy in range, and this effect can be triggered once every 8 seconds. So nice effect, but it requires him to get hit. And as I've already kind of talked about, fighters do rather tend to be squishy, as well as if you want to introduce them as damage dealers, because if you go for damage, then you kind of need to neglect defensive stats. But if you neglect defensive stats, he just dies. And then lastly, Hellborn. When HP is higher than 80%, increases all damage reductions by 15%. When HP is below 80%, increases the damage by 15%. So we have a damage reduction of up to 25% and damage increase of up to 25%. But again, kind of the problem of having, yes, defense, having that damage reduction for the first hit is nice, and then being able to follow up with increased damage. But he is, at the end of the day, rather squishy. And even though he has some absolutely beastly 7,967 attack, he, just from usefulness, sadly can't compare to someone like Ardea, who also has ridiculously high attack. And then obviously the most important problem, he only has one range, which then kind of limits you to having to put him in front of someone. And then, as we've already talked about, he just proceeds to die. So yeah. In the Curse faction, we also got a couple people to talk about. Alright, so obviously Curse faction, first off we gotta talk about Abisu. I've already briefly reviewed Abisu in terms of her viability and how strong she is, but the only thing you need to know is she's another cultist lord, and oh boy, she is way better than Aeon. Way better. So let's just go over her kit real quick. Restores 15% range when an enemy dies in range. This effect can be triggered once every 0.5 seconds. Very, very helpful for Gear Rate 1. Dealing 100% AoE damage to up to 5 enemies. Obviously nice AoE basic attack. Deals 100% damage 3 times to up to 10 enemies in range. Every 1 target hit grants 1 stack of Spike Force, giving her up to 30% attack. So also pretty great. Then we have Spectre Trampler. When the hero has Psych Force, so the one she gains from her ultimate, and hits an enemy with a basic attack, it generates a ground effect area which deals 10% damage per second for 3 seconds. So even more AoE damage. And then finishing it off with the casual, usual 10% stats as well as 20% more damage against slow, stun, freeze, and immobilized. Now on the note of awakenings, there's one pretty big one, which is the A3, which allows you to apply 15% magic rest reduction, which is the highest in the game behind Ajax, with then obviously Anai and Greed being lower. And also overall one of the very few characters that can actually apply this debuff. And then just to finish the other awakenings, we have when there's more than one target in range, the hero's basic attack has a 25% chance to launch one extra energy ball, so 6 targets. And then Awakened 5 increases damage by 20% for 10 seconds when a target dies in range. So overall, honestly, when it comes to epics, Abisu is probably one of, if not the strongest AoE mage we have. A very, very viable source of magic damage and very much in competition with Iona for the very best. So some really, really nice character you can actually be looking for, and that should be rather obtainable. But keep in mind, she is an epic lord, and we all know how hard it is to get our hands on Lunarias, Raidens, and all them peoples. So, Kosa. Kosa is in Watcher of Realms the biggest joke of a character ever. We'll go over her kit real quick. And in general, you only need to know that she has been a fusion. So you were able to fuse her, kind of like Crowder on the Forerunner servers. And for every 8 basic attacks by the hero and her grimoire, the next basic attack summons the Arcane Realm, centering one enemy for 5 seconds. Enemy in the realm will be inflicted with magic vulnerability at 20%, as well as receive 60% AoE damage. She deals 100% damage with her magic attack. She has Arcane Resonance, which allows her to enter the Arcane stance, increasing her attack by up to 50%, and when dealing basic attacks, her Grimoire will attack to this effect lasts for 10 seconds. So, yeah, rather single target focused, and when summoning the Arcane Realm in the Arcane stance, has a 30 up to 50% chance to summon one extra Grimoire, so getting some more kind of like Calypso, Praetus vibes and getting more units to hit with you. And an energy conversion after a hero or her Grimoire summons the Arcane Realm, increases the hero's attack by 4% permanently up to 3 times. Overall, seems like a nice kit, kind of like a single target mage. Way too weird chance to actually apply her debuff, and damage number wise she really just can't compete. And also look at that base attack. We have 2300 attack. That is absolutely abysmal. So the only thing you need to know for the moment is there's kind of a reason why we don't have her yet. Because she's bad. And then, who else do we have? Is there anyone here? Right here we go. Magda. Now, Magda is kind of dubbed by me as Zilly Blue instead of Zilly 2. So let's get on with the kit. When an ally dies in range, crit damage increases by 70% for 12 seconds. So kind of like already being exploited through using Laurel, giving you that 70% crit damage increase. Or even with someone like Cyrus that summons. So yeah, AoE magic damage attack. Deals 100% AoE damage to 5 enemies in range. Storming Assault. Each attack lands 3 strikes for 20 seconds, with each strike dealing 160% AoE damage. So a lot of AoE damage. A lot of damage in general. And then the caster and allies in range gain penetration increase. One of the strongest buffs in the entire game. As well as some nice damage increase. And then lastly, to finish off the kit, we have Deathly Thrust. Upon triggering talent or ultimate, basic attack knocks back enemies lasting for 6 seconds, going up to 10 seconds. Now, is she important? Yes. Do you want to know the reason why? Probably. So the answer is, Magda is one of the more popular characters and Forerunners to actually clear Gear 8-4, or Gear Dungeon, as we should now call it, Gear Dungeon with, if you don't have a Valkyrie at hand. So she's really good at dealing AoE magic damage. And just let's go over the awakenings real quick so we get them out of the way. When deployed, immediately restores 5 cost. Niche usage. And also kind of funny, especially with her costing 20, she technically only costs 15. Then we have A3. After an ally dies in range, attacks 5 more targets for 12 seconds. So she's basically attacking everyone and everything. And then during the ultimate, increases attack speed by 100, which is rather whack for an A5, because that's kind of the thing you get, you expect on like an A1, for example. Silas has exactly that. Which then finishes off the curse, brings us to the Infernal Blast. And as you can see in the Infernal Blast, nothing changes, no new heroes you still should be looking forward to. Then for the Piercers, obviously we have a very, very important one, and that is Iova. So now that we've seen 2 epic lords, we obviously also have a legendary lord that still hasn't been released. And what Iova is basically a single target marksman that has the ability to summon quite a lot of swords, attacking with those swords and then dealing up to ridiculous amounts of damages if you are actually able to play a lot of marksmen in your team. So let's go over the kit real quick. Conjures 1 flying sword every 4 seconds. There can be at most 12 flying swords at the same time. Every extra allied marksman on the field increases the conjuring speed. So basically he gets his flying swords, and as I said, the more marksmen you have on the field, the faster you're able to conjure them. Right here we then have a pretty standard 120% physical attack. Infinite Blades consumes all flying swords, and here's where it gets crazy. What you really want to do is activate the ultimate only if you do actually have 12 swords. You also see that he has a ridiculously low rage cost at only 500. And if that video wanted to load properly, you would be able to see that he's pretty much hitting ridiculously hard. So what he does is he's actually going to be hitting at maximum 60 strikes at, what's that again, 40% damage. So that's somewhere in the 2000 plus 2400 if I'm not wrong. 2400 damage, which obviously is absolutely ridiculous. Then right here we have obviously the passive Victorious Pursuit. Upon casting the ultimate, reduces the attack interval by 20, and each attack deals 55% damage 3 times instead of the usual just doing damage 2 times. And also the effect lasts for 10 seconds. If an ultimate consumes 12 flying swords, which is obviously what you want to do, the duration increases by an additional 5 seconds. Then right here we have Lethal Bladestorm. After an allied marksman casts their ultimate, he gets another flying sword, and the following 3 basic attacks will also be ignoring extra defense of enemies as well as doing extra anti-air damage. And then for the Lord bonus, we have the only change being that when deployed, faction team members' damage increases by 15% every 20 seconds, stacking up to 3 times. So a casual 45% damage increase, like it's nothing. So yeah, honestly, Iova is pretty strong. He's someone you should be looking forward to. If you pull him, your account is gonna be cracked. But now we come to the biggest problem. He is an Ancient Lord, which means he's going to be Ancient exclusive, as well as also obviously being a Legendary Lord, which makes him super fucking rare. Which means no one can really predict to actually pull him. As well as if you have a look at this, we have a total of 0.5 ratings. So that should just show you how really rare he is. Now, on the note of other characters, we have another epic. Let's actually start with the epic. And the epic we are still going to be looking for is Kalina. So, Kalina, quickly summarized, is a single target true damage mage. Cannot make crit hits. Each attack has a 50% chance to deal extra true damage equal to 50% of the hero's attack. As a talent, she deals 100% damage. She rapidly attacks a random target in range, each hit dealing 50% damage and triggering the talent effect, and after the ultimate ends, she stuns herself. Then right here we have Untamed Breath, increases attack by 20% when there is more than one enemy in range. Each one additional enemy reduces the attack increase effect by 5%. So if you face her against only a single target, that is where she really shines. Awakening wise, you're going to be able to eliminate the stun, lower her attack interval through ultimate, and then also for every 5 instances of damage taken from Kalina, enemies receive 1 extra true damage equal to 100% of her attack. Sounds like a lot of true damage, sounds like a lot of damage, sounds like a viable hero, but I've already extensively tested her before. If you want to see that video, it's called Testing All 4 New Epics, out of which obviously Abizu and Kalina are the yet unreleased ones, and she's pretty shit. She is really, really bad at what she's supposed to do. She doesn't really do her single target damage, and also true damage is really, really whack in most areas of the game, besides maybe Void Rift Delacia stage. So on paper she looks nice, but she really doesn't work. I don't know what they need to do, and I don't even know if they intend to do something, but with the way she is, she wouldn't even be worth pulling for if you had the chance to do so. Now, what the fuck is this? Like, who needed an Eloin reskin? I think she looks fucking ugly. I hate it, and it's cursed. Like, what the hell is this? Did they also show change her video? Because if not, we're going to see the old Eloin. What the fuck? No. Who asked for this? Who was like, damn boy, I don't like my Eloin. Let's change her. Like, what the hell? Alright, yeah, obviously. So before we continue, we gotta fix this one. We gotta talk about this one real quick. So, I don't know. You have the evidence right here. Uh, we have in the background and on obviously on the left side the old Eloin, and then right here we have the new Eloin. Now the question is, am I wrong? Is she now looking better or worse? What do y'all think? And I don't know. I feel like she had some more like unnatural look, kind of like a obviously like a dryad in the woods, right? But now she looks way too humanized, if that makes sense. Like, it's not in the sense of her looking beautiful. She kind of looks creepy. At least that would be my kind of judgment, I guess. But enough of Eloin. Let's talk about the rest of the character. Alright, yeah, so it's down to the last 3 after this interesting Eloin look change, I guess. Let's talk about Seline. So, Seline is like Kosa. Seline is another fusion that has been obtainable the way Crowder was on the Forerunner servers. And let's have a look at the kit. Throbbing Wound applies the mark to the enemy every time the hero deals damage to it. When the enemy has 4 stacks of marks, deals 200% damage to the enemy. Magic attack dealing 100% magic damage. Switch deals damage to an enemy 3 times swiftly, dealing 200% damage with the first 2 hits, and the last being 320% damage, obviously increased through skill ups. Then Lunge, basic attack has a 15% chance to trigger this effect, dealing 150% damage to multiple enemies in range. And then also starting riposte, the basic attack and lunge have a 10% chance to apply 2 stacks of mark. When throbbing wound is triggered, the mark deals damage to the enemies bearing the mark regardless of distance, and the damage state scales with the number of mark stacks. So yeah, pretty solid hero, nice attack range, again 2 attack. We don't really need to be looking forward to pulling her because she's a fusion type character, but overall she really doesn't do all that much. So she's just your standard fighter, esotericist faction doing magic damage. basically single target with some slight AoE aspects, but overall nothing too crazy, and you also don't really see her used for anything specific. Rather basic kit, rather simple, obviously for one of the earlier fusions in the game. And then who else do we still have? Helga. On the note of fusions, let's continue with Helga. Helga also has been a fusion on the Forerunner server, and damn, at least she has an interesting kit. So what she does is she obviously instantly gains specialized attack speed. That's that, so she just makes more out of attack speed in comparison to other heroes. Then we have magic attack. It deals 6% magic damage to one enemy. If the target is not blocked by the hero, deals an additional 20% damage 2 times. So it's kind of like a reverse Zillitu, because you know Zillitu does more damage against targets she blocks. And on the note of Zillitu, there's some nice synergy between her and Zillitu, because she has this passive right here, which states Abyssal Echoes. When there's an ally within 1 tile ahead, so let's say Guild Boss Zillitu in front of Helga, she gets up to 15% of that ally's crit damage. So at 300%, you're going to be able to get around 45% crit damage, which obviously is quite nice. Extra damage, extra stats, and makes building obviously simpler-ish. And then Quickstorm, doing the ultimate every 8 times of damage dealt to the same target inflicts stun and deals 100% damage. So she's mainly single target. And then now the ultimate, obviously the icing on the cake, rapidly strikes the target with the highest HP and range, dealing 20% damage 4 times every X second, and X is equal to 30% of the attack interval. So in a world where she has an attack interval of 1 second, that means she deals 4 times damage every 0.3% seconds, or every 0.3 seconds, which would then total up to around, if we don't count the skill ups, right, dealing 80% damage, pretty much dealing 240% damage per second, so clocking in around at 1600, 1800% damage in a single ultimate. And that obviously only gets way more ridiculous the lower you get, and having a character with specialized attack speed below 1 second of attack interval is pretty darn simple. So she is really strong. She's a way more exciting character than Crowdor, and Awakenings, honestly, I hate looking at Awakenings from Fusion heroes. Why do they even have those? It's not like we can actually get them. And that's also something that would be pretty cool. Imagine we could fuse a hero 6 times. Imagine we could actually realistically fuse the hero 6 times, get them at A5. That would be such a great thing. Getting heroes at A5 for a fusion instead of A0. And it would also just naturally make the fusions more powerful, making them more desirable, and actually having them have an impact on your account. So yeah, then we have Saraphina. The ominous blue flame of Saraphina conceals mystique and curse within its core. When the sapphire flame approaches, Saraphina's attacks follow close behind. Last but not least, Saraphina. I've already uploaded a video about her, I think 2 days ago. So yeah, what she does is she pretty much charges up her attacks while there are no enemies in range, then unleashes them all at the same time, kind of putting her in the single target wave scenario, which is only really single target arena. Even they are obviously hard to be tested, with test server being pretty bad at simulating arena. And overall, damage wise, she is rather decent. She is able to outperform a Calypso, but she is nothing meta changing, nothing too crazy. And let's just go over her kit to finish off the deal. So magic attack deals 100% magic damage to one enemy. Unbridled power, during the ultimate, removes currently charged Mystic Flame and reduces the charge interval of Mystic Flame by 40 seconds. Mystic Flame will be unleashed together only when there are 3 stacks of it, so Mystic Flame is what she stacks up. And normally she just attacks with Mystic Flame every time, and only if there are no enemies she stacks them up. But in ultimate she charges them 40% faster as well as then waiting for 3 stacks, then shooting out that in a burst. And the most important part is the fact that her skill cost is only 800, which is Salazar levels of skill cost. And if you combine it with an Terracist Lord, you're going to get really, really low, and you're going to be able to trigger that ultimate quite often. And then we have Eternal Hatred, which is just a chance to make one of her attacks more powerful, as well as applying Curse on the target. Now, on the note of Curse on the target, Curse is in a very weird spot where it doesn't really work on characters where it would matter, because it would be too broken. So imagine you were able to curse the AMR boss. That would basically take him out of the game. You wouldn't even really need a tank. So you can't curse the AMR boss. And if you can't curse the AMR boss, you also have this very weird Fifth Awakening, which deals 20% increased damage to targets inflicted with curse, as well as restoring rage. So you can't really use that. The A3 dealing 40%, increasing her damage by 40% for the first 30 seconds. And then obviously the A1, which is probably the most powerful and one of the most powerful A1s in the entire game, giving her higher trigger chance for the talent we've talked about. So the kind of the problem with her is she does alright damage. Her animations look nice. Obviously, her outfit is pretty decent. And yeah, that's really it. She's not really shining anywhere too greatly, and Curse debuff is in a very weird spot. And do tell me if I'm wrong, but I think even in Gear Dungeon you can't even apply Curse, because then you could anti-heal without anti-healing. That would be useful. Oh no. So I don't know, Curse is kind of in this weird spot of being too overpowered if it works, and too shit if it just works on the characters, because you don't really need to stop some random ass mob from basic attacking anyway, really. So yeah, that's her. And then just to finish this one off, we obviously have Philippa. You might be wondering, okay, who's her? Who is she? I've seen her before somewhere. The answer is she's just the unit you fuse together to get a Kosa, and Kosa is pretty bad. Her kit is pretty simple, and she's never really meant, or was never really meant to be her own character, so you can honestly really ignore her. And by the time you get the Kosa fusion, even then, Kosa ain't all that great. So yeah, if you've appreciated this one, yeah, I don't know, leave a like, consider subscribing. We see each other in the next one.